What's going on, everybody? Hopefully everyone's good out there. Welcome back to the channel. You already know, Looper Norris. I got another album review. Before we get into this review, I'm gonna go over some of the releases from my music. The next song to come out, Abracadabra, that's this week. That's the official day. Hashtag INDICA, a 15-track mixtape set for October 4th. Check that mixtape out, and plenty more music to come afterwards. More music a little bit after I drop the mixtape. I'm gonna keep you guys posted about that. Today I'm going to react to the new album by Rich the Kid, Life's a Gamble. Yeah, so it's not like super new. It's from this year. He dropped it on July 19th of this year, so it's like a little bit old. Just like every other episode, I'm gonna play out 4 songs, just a snippet. This basically gives you an example of what the album sounds like. That's basically why I do that. After I play about 4 songs off the album, I'm gonna start breaking down the album in my own point of view, how I personally feel about it. I'm gonna give it a rating and everything. Rich the Kid, Life's a Gamble, new episode of album reaction. This is all off of SoundCloud. The first track I'll play, this one's called Not in the Mood, featuring Offset. Bad bitch, taking the sushi. I ain't taking the Gucci. On the jet. This one's called Upside Down, featuring French Montana. They be cooking, they do dishes. Came up from the bottom, I had nothing. I got riches. I got broke in the church on the upside down. So this next track I'll play, this one's called Plain Jane. And this one's featuring Kanye West, which is pretty cool. And the last track I'll play, this one's called Louis Coat, featuring Chief Keef. In the Maybach, can't see in it. Roll out the red carpet when I'm walking. Baby mama broke, just stalking. This is my real life and just talking. I put $500,000 in a coffin. Alright, man, so Rich the Kid, Life's a Gamble, the new 2024 album by Rich the Kid. He's actually from College Park, Georgia, but he was born in New York City, which is a pretty cool fact about him. I actually didn't know that. I thought he was born in Georgia. He moved from New York City when he was like mad young. That makes more sense because of like his style and how he raps. He has more of a Georgia, Atlanta style of rap. Rich the Kid, the kind of rapper that started off with a lot of mixtapes and started off featuring in a lot of other rappers' songs. Kind of like Lil Wayne, but not as good at rapping, obviously. Lil Wayne is like top 5 greatest rappers of all time, but very similar in terms of doing a lot of features for other artists and rappers, putting a lot of mixtapes together. Very famous rapper, probably one of the more famous rappers out of Georgia. He's been featured in a lot of different songs. He's worked with a lot of different rappers over his career, including Kendrick Lamar, Rich Brian, Diplo, and Young Thug. A lot of other big names too. I mean, the list would go on and on. This is a very famous rapper. He's been working with a lot of different famous names in his past. Another thing about Rich the Kid, I think he's also famous for having a beef with Lil Uzi Vert. There's actually a video on YouTube that blew up like crazy when the situation was happening, and it was like a story that a lot of people were talking about at the time. It's Lil Uzi Vert too. That's another very, very famous artist. They are basically fighting, I think, in like a random street. I think it might have been Philadelphia. I think they were in a store, like a food store. I think it's like a donut store or something like that. They were basically going back and forth in the store. I think the people in the store tried to kick them out because like they were fighting in the store and like causing a like huge distraction and all that. I think Rich the Kid was like running from Lil Uzi Vert or something like that. Can't really remember the video, but the fact that these two, they don't sound the same, but they kind of look alike and they kind of have like the same style with like their colored dreads and all that. So I thought that was pretty funny, and like the whole story blew up. That's basically Rich the Kid that was beefing with Lil Uzi Vert. This guy is mostly famous for being one of those pioneers of mumble rap. He's probably one of the most famous mumble rappers to ever blow up in the hip-hop world. Before mumble rap started to get really, really big, I can remember him being one of the first to start rapping like that alongside like Lil Yachty. A lot of Atlanta rappers. It's almost like Atlanta started that trend from day one. Almost every song that he puts out is basically mumble rap style. That same style of rapping that he's known for, being a pioneer of that, he uses that same style mostly throughout this album. This album here, I'm not gonna lie, man, I got a lot more bad things to say about it than good. I thought overall the album was like okay. It was alright, kind of like maybe a little bit worse than that, to be completely honest. Rich the Kid, he's not really known for his lyricism. He's mostly known as a mumble rapper. You know how mumble rappers like work, you know what I mean? Like, they're not really saying too much with their lyrics. When it comes to mumble rap, the focus is mostly on like the production, overall feel of the song, like what kind of vibe it's on and how it makes you feel. Does it make you like dance? Is it popping? You know what I mean? Is it the type of music that you can play on like really strong speakers and like super loud subwoofers? Like, that's his style basically. I feel like I'm gonna have more bad things to say about this album than good, because I won't lie to you guys, like, I'm not the biggest fan of mumble raps. That's why I always thought Rich the Kid wasn't the greatest lyricist. He kind of falls under the category of rappers that do it more for making a great beat and trying to make it stand out with a lot of things outside of focusing on the lyrics. The way he dresses up, his like coloring his dreads, showing off a lot of like jewelry and cars and money with like the music videos. A lot of money is being put into like everything else outside of the lyrics itself and the songwriting itself. So Rich the Kid, I always looked at him as that type of rapper. Honestly, with this album, the highlight comes from the feature list. Like I said, man, Rich the Kid, he's not the best rapper, but he is very famous and he knows a lot of rappers in the industry. The feature list, I'm not too surprised. So he has guys like Offset, Chief Keef, Kanye West, Quavo, French Montana. Like, you hear these names, these are big names in the rap game. They're all featured on his album. Because that's the case, they all seem to out-rap him. Before listening to the album, just reading the credentials and the features, I can almost guarantee that every feature on the album is gonna out-rap Rich the Kid. He's not the worst lyricist in the world. He'll sometimes come up with lines where it'll make you think about them and, you know, like, they're pretty good. That happens maybe 30 or 40% of the time. Everything else is pretty bad for the most part. I remember listening to his music even like 10 years back, and there isn't really much improvement, to be completely honest, from the time he started up until this point. I'm pretty sure he's like 32 years old now. There isn't very much improvement from the time he started up until now. Like, he kind of raps the same way as he did when he started, which isn't the worst part. In terms of fans, that might be a good thing, but I don't see the improvement from the time he started up until this point. He gets out-rapped big time by everybody who's featured on his album, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I feel like it's got to be more of a bad thing than a good thing, because he could have at least kept up with everyone featured on his album. It's mostly because he uses mumble raps. The main reason why I always thought Rich the Kid wasn't the best rapper. At times he will show that he's a professional at this, and he'll drop lines where you're like, oh, okay, that's pretty good. He's been in the game for like 15 years. He knows what he's doing. Pay attention to his lyrics. He doesn't really like say anything in his lyrics. It's almost like he just wants his voice present on the beat, and that's enough. The way his whole like songwriting process, it's almost like he's freestyling his verse, maybe fixing one or two things on it and then recording it and then just forgetting about it. Doesn't really pay attention to what he's saying. A lot of his lines, it will make sense if you understand what he's saying. He mumble raps a lot when you do pay attention to what he's actually saying in his verses. Here and there, he'll give you some lines, but for the most part, it's really just bragging about how much money he has, how many cars he has, over exaggerating his fame and his fortune. That's basically what he talks about most of the time, not just throughout this album, but like most of the songs that he puts out. It's basically that throughout this album. So I think he could have put more effort into the bars and the lyrics to keep up with everyone featured on the album. I don't like the lyrical job. Most most throughout the album. At the same time, I still think that the raps outdid the beats on here, and maybe the feature list did that for him. The features on the album gave him enough support to out-rap the beats on here. Maybe the features on the album kind of forced him to try hard enough to keep up with everyone featured on the album so that it can ultimately outdo the beats. I think the beats, just like the effort that Rich the Kid puts into his raps, I think the same effort was put into the beats, man. And most of the beats were like, they weren't too bad, but every beat kind of sounds the same. It's like too simple. I feel like the beats could have been a lot stronger for the effort Rich the Kid puts into his vocals. I just think the beats are just very average on this album, especially for an album with pretty bad lyrics. You'd think that the beats would take a step up, maybe not outdo the raps, but just make the album sound better as a whole. I think he worked with a lot of different producers on here. So a lot of names that I've never really seen before. Not the worst beat list I've heard so far this year, but it's definitely like one of the worst though. I think the beats could have been a little bit better for how bad of a rapper Rich the Kid is. So at the end of the day, man, it sort of made his rap sound even better because of how bad the beats are. Most rappers are in charge of beat selection. They're the ones rapping. As a rapper, you'll know what's best in terms of which beat to use. You'll understand what will work and what doesn't work. He definitely picked out all the beats on his album. The way he raps on this album, it kind of seems like Rich the Kid is willing to rap on any beat. It's almost like he just picked out a random list of beats that he didn't really pay attention to. Maybe he just knows the impact that the beat will bring when he slaps his name on it and all of the features that he slaps on it. A name like Offset or Kanye West by the song. It's almost like the beat can be the worst ever and people are going to listen to it like crazy no matter what, just because they see the name, and the name holds a lot of clout. So it's almost like the way he picked out his beats, it's like he covered his ears and just randomly selected 17 beats to use for the album. The style of those beats match the style of how he raps. It ends up working for what he wants. Altogether, man, I don't hate the album, but I think it's a little bit less than okay. I just think the effort wasn't there in terms of the beat making, the lyricism, and just the overall feel of the album. The music in the album doesn't really match the title of the album. Kind of throws me off just a bit. Gives off like a mixtape style more so than an album. It doesn't sound like an album, but you do hear a little effort in his flow where he's sort of trying to switch up his flow even though he's kind of getting the same beat. You can hear the effort in that just a bit throughout the album. There is times, but for the most part, because every beat kind of sounds the same, every beat that's given to him is sort of giving him the same path to make the same song. Because Rich the Kid, like, he's been in the game for over 15 years. He's not the worst at rapping. There's still worse rappers than him. Not as much effort as like I feel like he can put, especially being an older rapper that's been in the game, that's worked with a lot of incredible lyricists time in his career. It's kind of surprising. I've been saying a lot of bad things about the album, but like it's a lot worse than I thought it was gonna be. I'll for sure say that. Too much auto-tune. Also, I'm not the biggest fan of mumble rap and auto-tune. I think those two things kind of ruined hip-hop just a bit. Way too much auto-tune, man. The album, his vocals sound way too like digitally created, just throws you off. He can't sing either. There's moments where he's trying his hardest to sing, but he can't sing. Even with the auto-tune on his vocals, his voice is like a computer voice almost. This should have been a mixtape. I think I would have looked at it a little different. This is representing him as an album, so there's like a couple of songs I like from it, but besides that, the main highlight is the features on here. They outshine him on all the tracks. In terms of a rating, I'm giving this one a 6.2 out of 10. Kanye should have produced a lot more on this one, especially compared to a lot of the albums I reviewed so far this year. Hip-hop's been killing it so far this year. A lot of rappers are putting out great albums, man, and after listening to those albums and then going to this one, it's just like I'm not too surprised, because like I said before reviewing this album, I did tell you that I always thought Rich Kid was not the best lyricist, and his skills came from his look and his whole style, how he markets himself, featuring in a lot of other rappers' songs, like his mixtapes. That's where he shines. 6.2 out of 10. That's all I gotta say about this one, man. October 4th, new mixtape, hashtag INDICA, 15 tracks set for October 4th. It'll be available everywhere, 12 o'clock a.m. right on the dot. Make sure you guys subscribe, like the video. Got plenty more content on the way. Got 2 of these episodes every week, so stay tuned for the next one. Once again, I'm Norris. I appreciate you guys watching this. Till next time, man, I'm out. Peace.